Hello everyone! As you can tell by the title of this video, I am doing my wrap-up for the month of February and what I read during the month. And I put a question in the title. Did I fail my February TBR? In the month of February, I read one book. Did I fail my TBR that I had set for myself? Technically, yes, I did. I did not read any of those books that I had listed out on my TBR for the month of February because I was extremely caught up in trying to finish American Gods by Neil Gaiman. And I did. I read the entire book in February. This book is hefty. It sits at a little over 750 pages long, and it is a beast. It is heavy material. It's not always the easiest stuff to read. It deals with a lot of shit that can be really triggering for people. And for me, it was just something that I was like almost savoring. And I would read a section and then really like immerse myself into understanding that section. So while I did fail, technically, my February TBR list that I had set, I did end up reading a book that I genuinely loved, genuinely enjoyed, and that kind of impacted me and changed a lot of my thinking and my understanding. So I consider it a failure and also a win because I'm trying to take positivity where I can get it. And honestly, reading a 750-page book is a big accomplishment for me, considering most of what I read in YA is between 350 and like 450 pages. I essentially read like double what I normally would read for a single book, and following the various perspectives that this book takes you through, following up with all the characters and feeling so invested with all of them, I just wasn't ready to read another book after I had finished this one, and I was still attached to all of these characters. So instead of just jumping into another book and potentially putting myself into a slump and not really enjoying what I was reading, I just kept with this, and I just let myself think about it, and I let myself enjoy it. So when it comes to American Gods, the plot of this book is that the belief in a god is what allows that god to remain viable, and it allows them to have a physical manifestation in whatever area that they're worshipped. So there's an Odin that exists in Sweden, there's an Odin that exists in Norway, there's an Odin that exists in America and in Canada. Wherever somebody has a strong enough belief in a god and pays tribute to them in whatever way that that particular god desires, that god then exists. And this book deals with the old gods that were brought to America through immigration and the, I guess, creation of the new gods of America. The god of like technology and media, because we feed them with our time and our energy and our tears, and we give them our money. So in a way, we're paying our devotion to these things that become these representations and become these icons. So it's almost challenging in a way to sit there and realize that, you know, you're pouring your belief into something that isn't what would be considered a god by someone 500 years ago, but in a way, we're literally devoting more time to something and more energy and more like faith into something that is so abstract a concept as like the media or the internet, that it allows it to manifest into a god in this particular portrayal. And I think that's just super interesting because we really do spend so much time on our phones or looking at a screen, or we spend so much time in these digital realms. Like, in a way, yeah, we are like providing devotion and worship. So really intelligent take on what is a god or what is a representation of a deity. And the premise of this is that those old gods and these new American gods are at war for the collective devotion or prayer or whatever you want to call it from the people. And Odin is essentially rallying the old gods to like fight this war against the new gods for who gets to remain viable in the minds and hearts of the people. And it's a story about a dude that kind of gets caught up in the middle of all of it, and just kind of has to figure out what the hell to do in a world where gods walk among us and you're aware of that fact, and coming to terms with what side are you on and where do you kind of fit in a world where these gods don't really care about you as an individual, they care about you as a collective. So it's really cool. You get to meet a lot of fun representations of deities throughout this book. It's almost like a really clever guessing game. Seeing like how many clues do you really need to figure out what representation is sitting in front of you. And each representation of a god can be different depending on where they come from. So watching the show that is based off of this book is actually really fun. It's totally not the exact same as the book. It would be kind of impossible to do that. But I am enjoying watching season 1 of the show. But the book is so in-depth, and it is so interesting to see the human experience in terms of religion, devotion, and inner human relationships laid out so well. This is not an easy book to read. I will say that. I struggled at some points to understand some of the content and to really get out of my own head in terms of, oh, this part of the book doesn't really seem to matter, because yeah, it did in a way. The characters are a huge web that's overlaid over this entire like plot story. And every single character that you meet is important to the overall story, which I think is really cool, because there are a lot of books that I read where a character is just thrown in there to be a filler, and a lot of what you think is going to be filler in this book ends up being important. So this was the only book that I read for the entire month of February, but it took up a lot of my headspace and it took up a lot of my time to read it, because I had to process a lot of this book as I was reading it. So for me, this was a 5-star read. Is this something I will go back to and reread? I don't know. It was really heavy, and now that I've read it through once, I feel like I have a different perspective, especially being pagan. I have a lot of respect for people that do great research and write a book with that research that makes sense to my belief system and pays respect to my belief system. So I don't think I'll tackle this 800-page book again anytime soon. But it is something that I'm grateful to have read, and it challenged me a lot, and I really enjoyed all of the little nuances in this book. If you are a lover of mythology at all, in any aspect, this is a really cool book to read. And it's very personal as well, because you can choose what side you're kind of on, regardless of the perspective of Shadow, the main character. It does lead you into, a specific route, but you can also just decide for yourself how you feel about these new gods versus the old gods. And it's just a really cool book. I really recommend it. If anybody ever wants to try and tackle this beast, it is so worth your time, but just know that it is a heavy investment from your time and your mental energy, and to give it kind of the weight that it deserves and not just try and like binge read it all in one go, because it really is something that you should take your time with and try to understand and try to really pay attention to all of the little things that happen along this story that Shadow goes on, because the more you understand mythology, the more you really see that Neil Gaiman has put a lot of research and a lot of thought into how he wrote this book. So even though it's the only book I read for the month of February, I'm happy I read it. I'm proud that I got through it. And do I really feel like I failed? No, because I read all month long, even if it was just one book. So didn't really get to my TBR, but you know what? We'll shake things up for March and we'll see how I do with reading in March. I do get to take a vacation, so there will be lots and lots and lots of reading that happens because I'm doing a staycation. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'm sorry that I didn't have a whole lot to talk about in this video other than American Gods, but I do recommend it very highly. It was really great, and I seriously think that this is one of those books that at some point in everyone's life, they need to read something that confronts their belief systems, and that was this for me. So I really just appreciate it for that. Thank you for watching. I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!